Commissioner Michaelides, thank you so much for the invitation. Honorable ministers, ladies and gentlemen, the GSMA very much appreciates the invitation to be here at this very important CTO gathering. And we're really pleased that you're tackling some of the various issues that we are focused on as an industry, because I know we very much have a shared agenda when it comes to connecting our citizens, or in our case, our consumers. And I think the commissioner highlighted it very well when he opened that the real question for us is, how do we close the digital divide, or how do we make sure that there's equal opportunity? And I think there's been a lot of discussion. I've tried to take notes. I'll try to touch on the points raised by the distinguished delegates and the ministers today. But I think that the challenges we face when we're looking at 5G and rollout of 5G are not all that different than the challenges we face as we look at trying to make sure that our citizens have had access to 3G, to 4G. Because right now, when we look globally, currently there's only about 12% of global connections are 5G. We do expect globally that to increase to 54% by 2030. But we also, and I know that many of the honorable ministers who spoke this morning are from the African continent, and we know that within Africa today, that 3G is the dominant technology. I would note that last year was the first year that 3G growth declined, so obviously the move up of 4G, which is now about 25% of connections in covering Africa. But I think there's three things that I want to look at, and I want to make sure I touch on the honorable minister's points that I think are the challenges that we face and we need to work together on. And I heard a lot of discussions about collaboration and partnership this morning. And I would say the first thing is, of course, the challenge of investment. The second thing I want to touch on, of course, is spectrum, which is a necessary element into any kind of mobile broadband. Lastly, usage. Because I think that really gets us to this challenge of how we get more people connected into the enabling digital environment. First, when we look at investment, I think that we need to look at the realities of the markets that we are in today. We obviously have a very different environment than we did 2 decades ago as we look at the regulatory landscape. And I think the honorable minister from Cameroon noted the challenge of making sure that the environment from today is fit for purpose for the environment in which we're in. When we look at this challenge of investment, in the world today, we know that we have exponential growth in traffic. So that's one reality. We also know that we don't want the burden to fall on consumers. So we have relatively flat revenue growth, and we also have relatively low return on capital. On average, globally, mobile broadband companies are 10% or below in terms of return on capital. So how do we make sure we have the requirements in place to meet this? Some of it, of course, is issues of what is the base of contribution, whether you're looking at whether it's universal service funds, whether you're looking at facilitating more investment directly into the networks through the broader digital ecosystem. And I think this is increasingly a challenge that has been discussed at the Broadband Commission. I think the European Commission will be tackling this issue soon. And I think it's something for us within the CTO to start to debate as well. I think we also need, I think one of the things that the mobile industry as a regulated industry very much needs to work hand in hand with government. And I think today we're at a point where we need to make sure that our digital ambitions are actually aligned with the market realities and also the policies and regulations in the market. So I would first say that investment is a challenge for us. I would say second is spectrum, to make sure that there is affordable and timely access to the necessary spectrum resources. Of course, one of the challenges there is it is a national resource, so it's very right and proper that it be paid for. But the question is whether or not how much money is coming out for that purpose, whether in spectrum fees or spectrum auctions, therefore taking it out of the system that can feed back into investment in networks. We also, of course, know it's an important year for spectrum with the World Radio Conference coming up. So this is our only chance for years to come to think about the future, think about what spectrum our citizens need to meet their future requirements, whether it be in the low-band spectrum to improve rural connectivity or the mid-band spectrum to address capacity going forward. And I think, but one of the things I really wanted to touch on today was usage, or bridging the digital divide. As you said, often at GSMA, we say closing the usage gap. And the reason we say that is because globally, 55% of the world's population has access to mobile broadband. But that means 45% does not. That is 3.6 billion people who do not have the opportunities that all of us in this room have. The vast majority of those people actually are covered by mobile broadband networks but are not using it. Only 400 million people today remain uncovered globally. And that is, together, industry and government, we've made great progress. Just in the past 7 years, we brought that number from 27% to whatever remains. What is it, 4% or something like that. So I think we're making a lot of progress on coverage, more to do, and I think there's a lot of important dialogues also to be had with the satellite industry around complementary use and coverage. But since 3.2 of that 3.6 billion is covered by mobile broadband but not using it, how can we get them access? The two biggest barriers we know are digital skills, and I heard that mentioned today. So more, and I think actually the point made, I believe it was by His Excellency of Tanzania, expanding the content base from the government can help be a driver, but a lot of it is just simple digital skills and knowing how to access and use digital content. Of course, the other big barrier, not surprisingly, is affordability. And affordability, the biggest cause of barrier on affordability is actually device affordability. So how can we work together to bring down the cost of devices? I was actually just talking the other day with the government of Rwanda, who has a very interesting partnership around device financing, but in terms of a government initiative, partnering with the operator and working with the Bank of Kigali. So I think we all need to be challenging each other to figure out ways to get more and more people connected. And I think that the last thing I do want to talk about is we look at this, because we're not talking about this just for 5G's sake or 4G's sake or 3G's sake. It is about what it is bringing to the broader economy and to the society. Today, it basically underpins every aspect, and those countries that have digital access will have a competitive advantage over those that don't. So I think there's plenty of tools that we can leverage. I mean, for example, if we just look at the climate crisis facing us globally, we've been doing a lot of work with our own industry, of course, to make sure they are sticking and delivering on their net zero commitments. But I think the more important thing is when we look at digital and the enabling power is what it can do for other sectors, whether it be manufacturing, transport, building. We did a study that we released at the previous COP in Glasgow, where we found that just existing smart solutions, that the four biggest sectors of manufacturing, transport, energy, and I think building, just by existing smart solutions, they could make 40% of their target reductions. So I think there's a huge opportunity. I think we do need to work together, and I was so pleased with the recognition here on the importance of collaboration. I think the industry knows it does as well, because let's face it, we are in a regulated sector. We must work together, and we have the same goal. More connected citizens means more subscribers on networks as well. So I would just encourage us all to work towards that shared objective. Thank you.